My name is Patricia Hernandez, and I'll be talking about Citizenship Kahoots. 4 parts to this presentation: tumultuous times, gaming platforms, ease of game creation, and online assessment. Our objectives are to discuss the Kahoot gaming platform, underscore the importance of cell phone accessibility, share the student asynchronous experience, demonstrate the ease of game creation, and highlight assessment tools. Ooh, indeed, these are tumultuous times for everyone, but especially in citizenship. Last October, a huge fee increase was scheduled to go into effect, but thankfully, it was put on hold. Not on hold is the 2020 version of the citizenship test questions. In December, we are facing a complete redesign of the civics questions. The questions themselves will change, as well as the number of questions that the applicant will need to answer correctly in order to pass this portion of the naturalization interview. This leads to the 2008 versus 2020 dilemma. Instructors are faced with the decision of which set of questions to teach. At the present time, all of my students will be testing under the 2008 rubric. It's important to poll your students to determine how to resolve this dilemma. But our tumultuous times did not begin with the fee increase. I'd say they began with our precipitous transition to remote learning in the spring. And precisely because of the pandemic, we turned to gaming platforms and other online options to enhance our virtual citizenship curriculum. I believe most teachers are familiar with Kahoot, quizzes, Quizlet, and other platforms that facilitate synchronous in-class gaming. However, a wholly different aspect of the Kahoot platform is the asynchronous gaming, which allows students to play the games, or as we would say, do the quizzes, on their own time and from any site. They can play multiple times to improve their score, thereby challenging themselves, or they can play multiple times to get a higher ranking than their fellow classmates. The bells and whistles will still go off whether they play synchronously or asynchronously. Now, from the instructor's perspective, the ability to assign asynchronous games is extremely useful, especially with respect to assessment. However, from the student's perspective, asynchronous gaming is entertaining and has students clamoring for more. I have been assigning homework for 30 years, but I have never had such an immediate response with students asking me to assign more. That was indeed a first. Most of my students access my class via their cell phones. Almost no one has a computer. So most of my students access the games via their cell phone. This then requires that the gaming platform be well suited to cell phone access. Now, this can be a tricky issue. So many platforms focus on computer access with little or no consideration for cell phone users. This is not the case with Kahoot. Let's take a look. This is a screenshot from a cell phone. It is from a game focused on providing students with dictation practice. As you know, one of the requirements of citizenship is to be able to write in English. Dictation is one of the components of the citizenship interview. The applicant is given a dictation to demonstrate that he can write English. Now, if you look more closely at this slide, the question is a sequencing question. The student needs to put the words in the correct order. The sentence begins with the United, and then there are 4 spaces, and the words that fill those spaces are listed here, and students have to put them in the correct order. This is another cell phone screenshot of a true-false history question. The image is quite visible, as is the question and how the student is to respond. Clearly, the Kahoot platform is made for cell phone access. Now let's take a closer look. Oops, let's get over there. Now let's take a closer look at the platform itself and the tools it provides teachers in the development of class materials. So here's a section, the ease of game creation. First, we'll consider the ease of game creation or quiz creation for all intents and purposes. When I first tried Kahoot, I reviewed the quizzes that had already been prepared by others. However, in citizenship, you have to be careful because some items of the 100 civics questions are state specific. Questions about the capital of your state, for example, or questions about the names of the senators that represent your state. So before assigning any games, I had to adapt them for my California students. This was my first experience with the development of classroom materials on a gaming platform. However, the student response was overwhelming, and this drew me to explore more in depth. So rather than adapting games already developed by citizenship colleagues, I began creating games that were more reflective of the weekly topic discussed in our class. In this section, we'll discuss preset question types, preset image library, pre-structured quiz format, and a partial list of Kahoots. Here we have the palette of questions, the variety of questions that you can use in your development of a quiz, right? The first one is a quiz. They call it a quiz question, but for us, we'd know it as a multiple choice. True or false, that's obvious. Type answer is a fill-in or a cloze exercise. And the puzzle questions are sequencing questions, putting items in the correct order, as in the first screenshot that we saw before. So once I select the quiz, once I select the type of question, which I did here as a quiz question type, this is the screen that appears. I need to type in the question as well as the answer options. You can see that I have written in the question about how many amendments the Constitution has, and I have typed in my 4 answers options. Let me draw your attention to the square in the middle, where it gives you the option to drag or drop an image onto the slide. I clicked on Image Library and wrote in Constitution. And voila, I'm able to insert an image of the Constitution to give the students a visual reference to the question. So Kahoot provides us with a palette of question types as well as a library of images to work with. Together, these provide a pre-structured quiz format. I can choose how many questions to include, select a title for the game, and when I'm finished, Kahoot will package it up and have it ready to be sent out to my students so that they can play it as a game. Here's a partial list of games that I have created. They reflect the topics that we cover in citizenship: the Constitution, US geography, important names, cabinet secretaries, requirements and steps to citizenship, and dictation practice. You can also see that I use this platform to create a poll to find out who the students' US representatives were, as well as weekly reviews. Each week we study 25 of the civics questions, and I have prepared a review for each of the sets of 25. 1 through 25 review questions, 26 through 50 review questions, 51 through 75, etc. We'll turn now to online assessment. Kahoot prepares reports for every game the students play, a summary report, a player performance assessment report, and a content area assessment report. Here's a partial listing of my reports from the early part of the semester. The names of the games are listed on the left. In the middle is the date when the Kahoot was assigned. And on the far right is the total number of participants in each game. You can see that 17 students participated in the review of questions 51 through 75, 8 in the important names game, 11 in the cabinet secretary's game, 9 in the review of the questions 26 through 50, 12 in the review of questions 1 through 25, 15 in the requirements and steps to citizenship, and so on. So I'm going to click on the review of questions 51 through 75. Here, report. And we have a summary report. As I indicated before, there are 3 kinds of reports that Kahoot provides the instructor. The summary report that we have here. And here with the first red arrow, you're going to see the student performance report is referred to here. And with the second red arrow, the questions report, which is really a content area report. We are, as I said, we're looking at the summary report for the review questions 51 through 75. We can see that a total of 17 students played the game and that the game consisted of 20 questions total. The overall accuracy rate was 79%. So now let's click on the player's performance report. There are too many players to fit on one screenshot, so I have taken a couple of screenshots and placed them side by side. We can see that Catalina with the orange, hopefully you can see that's a light orange arrow, played a total of 3 times, bringing up her score from 85% to 90% to 95%. Deyi with the yellow arrow also played 3 times. She started at 65%, brought her score up to 80%, and then the third time reached 95%. And finally, the content area report. It will be easier to see if I show the breakdown on 2 separate slides. First, we have questions 1 through 10. Clearly, question number 1 about George Washington being the father of our country was known by all students with 100% accuracy. I really don't have to review this at all. On the other hand, much lower on the scale were questions 5 and number 7. Number 5, having to do with the causes of the Civil War, was answered correctly by only 47% of the students. And number 7, having to do with the life of Benjamin Franklin, was answered correctly by only 53% of the students. These are 2 topics that I must review. Here is the breakdown of the second set of questions, questions 11 through 20. 3 questions were answered correctly 94% of the time. Number 14, why colonists fought the British. Number 16, name a war fought by the US in the 1800s. And number 19, the age at which men must register for the Selective Service. These are topics which seem to be pretty clear to the students. However, a couple of the questions, number 12 and number 15 in particular, about the promises we make as part of the naturalization ceremony and how we can participate in our democracy, were answered correctly only 59% of the time. I need to review these topics as well as a few others on the quiz, especially where the students scored 65%, 71%, and 78%. A couple of these more difficult questions have to do with the life of Benjamin Franklin, and the third about the Constitution. So I clearly will include these topics in my lesson plan. Now let's go back to the list of objectives. Discuss the Kahoot gaming platform, underscore the importance of cell phone accessibility, share the student asynchronous experience, demonstrate the ease of game creation, and highlight assessment tools. I think we've covered each of these objectives. So we can go on to the conclusions. These have been difficult times for all, no question. Another conclusion is clearly that citizenship is in flux. And here, gaming platforms can help stay the course by offering entertainment to students and helping instructors evaluate student progress, and also help determine what content areas need to be reviewed. So thank you for attending this presentation. Feel free to access any of my Citizenship Kahoots. If you have any difficulty, contact me. My email is indicated on this slide, and it would be a pleasure hearing from you.